Hi, welcome back to our channel, Two Brothers Opinions. My name is Barry, this is my brother Mark.
Yeah, so today we were looking for a new topic and we thought we'd hit World War II. And
Mostly the Marine Corps.
yeah, because that's what our dad was.
Yeah, our dad was
He was the Marine Corps.
he was the Marine Corps. No. Well, it felt like it sometimes in our house.
True.
Felt like we were, he was a DI.
Storming the beaches.
So, yeah, we're just going to do a brief thing about a little bit about World War II and our father's experience. I mean, we can't speak for him, but we do know the things that he said, and I think it's very important that we talk about things like that.
Yeah, so I know he did basic training down south.
Yep, Parris Island.
Parris Island. Then he went to California.
On a troop train.
Yep, and then he took a boat to Hawaii and was sick the whole time.
Yep.
He was on a destroyer. He was sick the whole time.
Yep.
And then he ended up on
Destroyer Escort, which is even smaller than a destroyer.
And then he ended up on the island of Saipan, which he always said, well, the fighting was already over with, but then I got there.
Yep. So actually they were in transit to the South Pacific.
Right.
And he was actually going to be a replacement for Iwo Jima.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And it's funny because my sister and my brother they're pretty close in age, and I'm farther apart. I was the oops baby, and literally that's what I was.
Yeah.
There was only going to be two, my sister and then my brother, and then 6 years.
6 years later, you arrived.
So we always say we're twins separated by 6 years. Ma had a long birth. But they know things that I don't know about my mom and dad, and I knew things more with my dad because
it was just the two of you for a little while.
Yeah, because when I went to first grade, my mom went back to work.
Back to work.
Because you needed two people to make a living.
And she worked second
even
shift,
back then,
3 to 11.
Yep. And so pretty much my mom raised my sister and brother, and my dad raised me because my mom was working. So I hear all these stories. Plus, when I was, I think I was 10, 11.
9? I think you were 9 when you joined the Young Marines?
Yeah, I was a Young Marine.
Yeah.
Basically, Young Marines was almost like a Boy Scout.
But you were literally you had to have your shoes polished. They
Uniform.
They used to do inspections. And then you went to boot camp.
I went to, not the boot camp.
Was it Camp Lejeune?
Excuse me. Yeah, we went to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. That's the amphibious school for the Marine Corps.
You were down there for
a week.
A week?
Yeah. And actually Vietnam was still going on. That was 1974. We pulled out of Vietnam in 75. So it was pretty funny. We had a really good experience. We did rappelling, live fire drills, of course, with the Marines standing there with us. We were in landing craft. We were in tanks. We went inside helicopters. Of course, they weren't flying at that time, but they were showing us all things about it. And here's a quick little funny story, even though it's supposed to be about our dad. So we're on the tarmac, and we're looking at all kinds of aircraft. They're walking with us. So one of the guys got in a helicopter. I don't know what it was. I can't even remember back then. I'm thinking it was a Huey, and so the guy says to one of the guys, "It's kind of virtually impossible to start this up if you really don't know what you're doing." So he's in the cockpit, starts hitting buttons. All of a sudden, the rotors start, and he jumps in and shuts it all off, and we all got yelled at. But it wasn't impossible,
right?
So anyhow, the story where we left off, he was supposed to be a replacement for Iwo Jima. In the meantime, they got diverted to Saipan. My father was trained on 81 and 60 millimeter mortars. They don't do 60s anymore that I know of.
He also carried a BAR too.
And then he became a BAR man, which is Browning automatic rifle. And then he became an MP.
He was an MP.
So when they went to Saipan, his detachment, I always heard him say he was attached to the 1st Marine Division. Don't know what his unit was.
Except he was the second division.
Oh, it was 2nd Marine Division?
6th Marines.
Okay, I see. I didn't know that.
I think that's what it was. I think it was because it's on his tombstone. I think it's 2nd Division, 6th Marines.
Oh, okay.
I think.
Okay. I did not know that.
Yeah.
And so they were in charge of the island. They did work details.
He guarded. We have photos of
I have it here.
of him guarding Japanese prisoners, and he told his story of one of the guys owned a restaurant in Tokyo, and because my dad treated him so well, the guy told him after the war, "You come to Tokyo, and I'll give you free food."
Yep. So I don't know if you guys could see that, but that's the picture right there of my father. He is without the shirt, and you could tell by the hat if you could see that.
Yeah, it's hard.
It's very hard to see, but there's stain on it because we had these in the basement, and there was Japanese prisoners. The guy squatting down on the left side of the picture. There's 3 of them squatting down. Those were Japanese prisoners.
Yeah,
and
he even saw, because there's the story in Saipan. There were a lot of caves, and a lot of the Japanese men, women, and children would dive out of the cave and fall to their death on the rocks. And he said he saw people diving out, women too, because they thought that they were told that the Americans were going to do all this horrible
rape
stuff.
them and torture them and stuff like that.
But he was there at the time when the atomic bomb was brought to Tinian,
which is the island,
which is right next. The islands are right near each other. And I remember asking him, did he know that the atomic bomb was there? And he told me, he's like, we knew there was something there that could end the war, but we didn't know what it was.
Yeah, they said the scuttlebutt was it was a secret weapon that's going to end the war. So people knew
something was up,
even though the Manhattan Project was top secret.
Right, and if it didn't work, he told me he was in the first wave of Marines that was going into Tokyo Harbor.
Yep,
and he told me he goes they expected about 1 million casualties between both sides.
Yep.
And he goes, that bomb doesn't work. He goes, I'm dead. You're never here.
Correct.
So I always tell people, like, I'm like a baby, the baby from the atomic bomb.
Yeah.
Because that thing worked and I'm here. And that thing didn't work, I wouldn't be here.
So
you wouldn't either.
After victory over Europe, VE, what had already happened. And so he's on the island. And, he did patrols, stuff like that. And all of a sudden, he starts seeing a lot of army coming to Saipan. And he goes, something's up.
Yeah.
And then that's when they called everybody over and they revealed this map of the invasion of Japan. And his unit, like my brother said, was spearheading Tokyo Harbor.
Yeah.
I mean, they'd be throwing pots and pans if they could.
Yeah.
And so he definitely probably would have been killed.
Yeah.
In that. And we used to tease him a lot too. I said, hey Dad, do we got any brothers or sisters
on Saipan?
On Saipan we don't know about?
And all he would say is, oh, shut up. He would never say no.
Yeah.
He would go, I'll be quiet.
Because there was a lot of native women there, and he goes, yeah, they were down another section of the island. I say, so you knew where they were? Well, of course I knew. He told a really cool story that one of the guys stole a beer truck.
Yeah.
And my father told him, where are you going with this? You're on an island. He ended up in Leavenworth for stealing a beer truck. And he used to trade his beer allotment for Coca-Cola. Because my dad wasn't a drinker.
No.
He was a smoker, though. Cigarettes.
Back then. But by the time I was born, he had stopped.
Yeah, he stopped in 54, 55.
That's when Dawn was.
That's when our sister was born.
Yeah, and he stopped. I never saw him smoke.
Yeah, but he told me that he was so addicted to cigarettes that there was a blizzard, and he walked through waist-deep snow to his sister's house, my Aunt Grace, who passed 10 days after my dad, to go get a cigarette. That's how addicted he was. And then he coughed up blood one day, threw it on the counter, and never smoked again.
Never smoked again.
And died of lung cancer.
Yeah, but that was from work.
Yeah, breathing in all the oil. He was a factory worker.
Yeah.
But the stories that he used to tell and the things that he used to tell, we figured we'd touch on it a little bit and talk about his experience. He always talked about, I know, what was the show with the Army guys there? Brothers, something...
Band of Brothers?
Band of Brothers. And then they created another one after that. It was the Pacific, I think it was called. And he always talked about John Basilone, who was actually from New Jersey. My father used to talk about that all the time. All the time he used to talk about him. I
didn't know
never
that.
met him.
I didn't know that.
But yeah, he used to talk about it all the time.
Oh.
You know, John Basilone, the Congressional Medal winner, medal
honor, not
yeah,
winner.
you know what I mean. Congressional Medal of Honor winner.
Winner,
That's
there
what
you
I
go.
meant, yeah, and then he ended up going on a tour to sell bonds,
Yep.
and then going back
Yeah.
with his guys. He would say, "I'm going back with my guys," and then got killed on Iwo Jima.
Yeah.
Pretty weird how my dad was going to be a replacement.
Yeah.
So the war was over, and they get orders from their lieutenant that they're going to go on a mop-up mission to another island. And I actually have a picture of the island.
Because I know he
Yeah.
he wanted to. They were going to have a security force.
So that's the island. It's sorry, it flipped on me. I apologize.
They were going to have a security force in
it flipped
Tokyo,
again.
in
But
Japan,
anyhow,
and he wanted to stay in
That's
Japan.
the island that they went on a mop-up.
He wanted to stay in Japan.
Oh yeah, well not in Japan. He wanted to do
No, well, he wanted to be stationed there.
Yeah.
While they are like what they call it?
Occupation duty.
Occupation duty. He had volunteered to go, but he didn't go.
But that's the island they had. So the war was over, and their lieutenant volunteered to do this mop-up because that island was cut off. They actually went around it. And there was still Japanese
Yeah.
on that island.
Yeah.
And he tells a story, a guy wanted to shoot the lieutenant because he goes, the war's over and you're going to get us killed.
Right.
He said, there's enemy over there. Just leave them. And they couldn't do that. So they go over there, and there's 3 or 4, I can't remember. I think there was 4 Japanese in a cave, and they had a translator with them. And they told them the war's over, come out, we'll take care of you, blah, blah, blah. And they heard 3 gunshots, and the other guy walked out.
Wow.
So the other guys committed suicide,
Oh.
and that's how fanatical they were. And the other guy came out, and
And Dad was there.
Pops
didn't
was
know
there.
that story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, we're learning things as we're
Yeah.
doing this video too. And he would tell me that because he was a guard to prisoners, that the Japanese would eat the same food, and before
Before the Marines did.
the Marines did. So that's how well we took care of the prisoners. There's also a story I heard on History Channel that these German prisoners of war were on a train, and they were coming through, I don't know, Kansas, one of those Midwestern states. And when they stopped, they couldn't believe that the people went up to them and gave them sandwiches and food, water, apples. And they were like, we're prisoners, and you're treating us like this. It's just amazing the compassion that people
Our culture.
Yeah, our culture has.
Yeah,
for
I
that.
mean, we rebuilt. I mean, the United States, along with other people, but usually the United States gave a lot more in terms of finances. But we rebuilt Japan.
Yeah, Nagasaki, Hiroshima.
Yeah,
Look at them now.
Yeah, and I was telling my brother earlier that because we were talking about Europe a little bit and how if you look up the bombing of Dresden, Germany, that town was important because it had a lot of bridges, and that town was leveled.
Wasn't it firebombed, I believe?
Yeah, the British bombed it all day long, and the Americans bombed it all night long, and they did it for like ever, and there was nothing left. And I actually was there 2 years ago in Dresden, and it looks like there was never a war there. They took a lot of the bridges and rebuilt those bridges with some of the stones that were still in good shape, and you can see the newer stones versus the older stones. And they rebuilt that city. It looks like Germany 1940.
Yeah.
Beautiful city.
Isn't that amazing? What we do for a former enemy.
Yeah.
We just go in there and rebuild everything. Well, we didn't build it, but we gave them the money to build it. But we were there helping, as far as taking over the structure of the city. I know watching the movie Patton. There is a second movie, The Last Days of Patton, that George Scott played in.
Oh, I never saw
and
that.
it talks about him taking over Bavaria and how Eisenhower, the general, not the president at that time, he was mad at him because he still had Nazi guys in the political party. I mean, not the political party, but the city council and all that, trying to get that Bavaria going again. And he goes, but they know. And he made them take them out because they were Nazis. He said, well, who am I going to put in there? They don't know what to do.
Right.
They're the ones, you know. It's a very interesting movie if you watch that, called The Last Days of Patton. But yeah, so that's what we were talking about. We could even go before my dad went in the Marine Corps. We're from Waterbury. Everybody knows we're from Connecticut.
Right.
So my father was born in 1923 in Waterbury on Mass Avenue. The house is still there.
Yeah.
Mass, and then it goes Rhode Island. It's a very short street. The house is still there that he was born in. And he worked in Waterbury Manufacturing on North Main Street. And of course, Waterbury was the brass capital of the world. It's still known as that, but there's no factories no more. They're all gone.
Yeah, it was on the list, on Hitler's list of places to bomb the United States. I think it was like in the top 5.
Once they took over England, they were going to fly bombers to bomb Waterbury. And so Pops was telling me that one day they're putting anti-aircraft guns on the roof. And he was still working while the war was on, had started. And so a bunch of the guys in the neighborhood said, you know, we better join before we get drafted.
Right.
So they all went down and joined the Marines. And it's funny because he joined and then he got papers to go in the Army.
Oh, that's funny.
So he went down to the Army and said, I'm in the Marine Corps. And they said, we don't care as long as you're in.
Oh, that's good.
Yep. And he also talked about someone he knew that went through 3 major invasions in the Marines and never got a scratch. And another guy was coming in on his first invasion and a mortar or artillery shell hit the Amtrak that they were coming in and sunk, and everybody died.
Jeez.
So one guy goes through 3 major invasions, never gets a scratch, and another guy has his first time coming in the wave, and he gets killed.
Yeah.
So it's amazing what the stories that you hear. So now the war is over, and so they're asking people to re-up, to rejoin. And so my father says, if you give me occupation duty, I'll go to Japan and I'll sign. And they wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
So he said, okay, I'm out. And kind of lucky that he didn't, because not very near in the near future was Korea.
Right.
And a lot of Marines got killed on Chosin Reservoir.
Yeah.
And he goes, I could have got killed in Korea.
Yeah.
So things work out pretty weird in life.
Yeah, and one of the things that we talk about life and stuff, you look at how we were talking about how we treated the German prisoners and even the Japanese prisoners. This past October, I was in Prague, and we went to Terezin, which was a prison camp for Jews and for some Germans who were against the war. And this prison camp, I believe it was like 10,000 people died there. It wasn't a concentration camp, but it was a prison camp that you were there and you were treated so bad that a lot of people died there. Like I said, it was like there's a Jewish cemetery, there's cemeteries all over that place. But they also had a crematorium, and I forgot how many bodies that they cremated. And you can go there, and the equipment is still there. I mean, everything is still there, just the way it was. The bunks are there. The medical building, which basically it's like an empty shell right now. But they had another room that was probably, I'd say maybe 10 by 12, just a cement room, cement floor. There was one bucket for people to use, as a toilet, and they would have up to like 70 people in that room, and they basically just put them in there and lock the door. And these people all were in their own filth and everything else, and they
sleep wherever.
They'd get sick and they'd die, and then they'd cremate them.
Yep.
Like historically, it was kind of interesting to be there, but when you're there, you get this weird feeling like this was
Tell
not
them about the pool.
Yeah, so they had the prisoners build a in-ground pool for the guards, the German guards that lived there. The German
and their
guards,
families, right?
and their families, yeah. And this was literally like a fortress, but there was the town right next to it. So it was like literally you step outside the fortress or the prison, and there's the roads to the town. There's houses there, and they had the prisoners dig this pool using spoons, literally spoons. And this was like a regular built-in swimming pool.
I saw
a big
when you showed me the picture. I was like,
it's a
they
big
dug that
swimming
with
pool.
spoons?
Again, I forgot how many people died.
It was big. big
And then
pool.
as the war was ending, and they knew it was ending, there was a wall in one section, and they used to line up the prisoners and just shoot them. But there was also a place where they used to hang them, and that was still there. The gallows was still there. So it was weird to be there, historically weird, kind of interesting, but just you get this weird vibe being there.
So again, you talk about history.
Yeah,
Not one of our videos in the past, we talk about taking monuments down and removing history because you need history so it doesn't repeat itself. And here's history. We tell you, we told a story about our dad being in World War II, being a Marine, and now he's telling you about Europe. And these things need to be there, even though terrible things happen in war, but they need to be there so they're not repeated again.
yeah. And so I just think people need to chill out a little bit and allow history to be there and to understand. I don't know if it would probably be too expensive, but I swear every class in high school should go to Terezin or one of these other camps and just see what happened to realize that what we have here, we have in the United States, we have a good life.
Yeah, I know. Previous video, I said I lived in Panama. Well, I lived in Central America. So now I lived in Panama, the last country before South America. There's no welfare.
Yeah.
You don't work, you don't eat.
Right.
And there is a lot of people in towns that share food. People will come around and say, with weed whackers, I'll do your lawn for $5 or whatever, or feed me.
Yeah.
So there is socialized medicine there. You could also pay for, if you have a really good job, you could also pay for insurance, health insurance. The weird thing is that these doctors that are in upper tier hospitals, they're the ones that go to the small towns and volunteer to help the people in poorer areas or smaller hospitals. I saw women at 4:30 in the morning with their children waiting in line for the clinic that opens at 7.
Yeah.
Now, I used to take the bus from the town that I lived in. Now, this is going back, oh my God, in the early 2000s. I used to take a 2.5-hour bus ride for like $3 from the town that I lived in to what they call Panama, which is Panama City.
Right.
And more than half the population of Panama lives in Panama City. And there's good and bad areas. The weird thing is also is pretty funny because we're no longer there, and we're no longer at the Panama Canal, and we no longer have a base there anymore, military bases. There was a naval and an army base. As a matter of fact, I had a friend that was an airborne ranger from high school, and that's where they went for jungle training, to Panama. And they took me, one of the cab drivers took me for a ride, and he says, I'm going to show you the old base and the old houses, Officers Row. And they're the only houses built out of wood because it's so tropical down there. Wood usually rots with termites, but there's still people living on there. They bought them. When I was there, I looked into buying a house, and $20,000 I got to cut a 2-bedroom with land.
Yeah.
Not anymore, but
Still.
but this is the early 2000s.
Yeah. Hey, before we wrap up, I just thought of something too. Back in, it was 2005. I was in Europe, and we tried to go to the Eagle's Nest, which is Hitler's fortress in the Alps. And we got to the very bottom, and we started to go up, and there was a blizzard up at the top, so they shut the road down. We never got there, but I was like halfway up.
Our uncle went there. My mom's oldest brother.
We also saw, halfway up, we also saw some of the wood and some of the shacks that were left, but they used to be the barracks for a lot of the SS.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can still see some of it, but I wanted to get to the top. I never got there. It just you were just talking about bases and stuff. I'm like, oh wait, I was there. So I just wanted to mention that. Almost got there.
Yeah, so I mean, we touched on World War II a little bit and our dad.
Yeah.
There's a lot that we could go down the rabbit hole on World War II and what they knew.
Yeah.
Did they know that the attack on Pearl Harbor was coming? I think they did, because I don't think people wanted in the United States there was an isolationist movement where people didn't want to get involved in the war.
Yeah.
But I think we needed to.
If we go down that path, we'll be talking for another hour
Or two. Yeah. So
So,
we try to put out some nice short videos. This
Yep.
is about 25 minutes now.
Yeah.
And so that's going to wrap it up.
Yep.
Hit the like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. We appreciate everybody. We really do.
Yep.
We'll
Comment.
always say that because we really do appreciate you guys watching our videos.
Yeah, and it's we're having fun doing it, so that's cool.
Yes, we are.
Yep. So we always end with, don't forget that you have a voice, and don't let anyone silence it.
No, especially being Italian,
Yep.
we talk a lot.
Yeah, we do.
Thank you very much. We'll see you on the next video. All right, have a good one.
Yep.